Can you hear me? Oh, no.
John Chambers is Leslie Costa, who's a landscape architect. Phil Cox, to my right, is an architect and developer. To my left is a new member, Paul Lorenzo, that's how I pronounce it. And then, of course, Mike Casella, the town, the assistant town planner, is helping moderate the meeting. So we have one petition tonight. It's Kirby Marine for a new project in the Portsmouth Industrial Park. And members all have everything in front of them. And so there was somebody from, and we have Nick Avery that's not with us tonight. He's an historic architect who will be joining us from his home. So with that said, if we can move on with somebody from Kirby Marine that would like to speak, please go ahead.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, Tom Pritzby, Pritzby Engineering Company. Could everyone hear me okay?
Perfect.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, great. Now, Mike, are you controlling the screen there?
Yep. Yeah, I got you.
Okay. All right. Good evening, Chairman, members of the board, Tom Pritzby, Pritzby Engineering Company, on behalf of the applicant, Kirby Marine. I'd just like to kind of start off by briefly explaining just where the project is, what we're proposing, and then we can get into some details and questions as we proceed along. The applicant is High Point Ave LLC. The property is, as you know, on a High Point Ave in the Portsmouth Industrial Park. The zoning there is industrial limited light. The lot size is approximately 2.5 acres of land. And the building that is being proposed is Kirby Marine is a well-established marine company that does very light marine rest. Currently, Kirby Marine is established just north of this site. There's existing buildings with multiple commercial establishments where he currently resides with his business. So what he would be doing is proposing this new building and moving his operations into this new facility. What is being proposed is a 100 by 240 foot long, I guess if you call it prefabricated steel building. Those drawings have been submitted. Mike, I'm not sure if you could submit those or if the board members have those. There you go. What we have here is, again, it's going to be light gauge steel. Some of the specs on the building, the architect for the building manufacturer, we submitted as well. I'm not sure if that's part of your packet or not. There you go. So there's some of the specs, the colors, some of the thin gauge ribbed steel that are being proposed. There's a multiple architectural elements that our client is imposing on this project, just to kind of go above and beyond a little bit than just your typical steel box building. You know, he does take pride in the aesthetics and, you know, the visual side of it and what it's going to look like. So there's some specifications in there that we submitted for the record. We can go through in detail later after we're done just kind of reviewing the overall project. Mike, if you could go back to the site plan for me. And good, yeah, there you go. If you could zoom in for the board there, I can just kind of review what we're proposing. Perfect. So again, the 240 by 100 foot building going north to south is a 240 foot length. We're going to have our main entrance off of the westerly side of High Point Avenue. There's only going to be one egress. It's going to be a full 24 foot wide with 20 foot curb radiuses. We did review this entire site layout with the fire department, and we do have that letter. Mike, I'm not sure if you were able to forward that to the board members to review.
Yeah, that came in separately, didn't it? After the
Yes, after, yes.
yeah,
correct.
yeah. I'm not sure that's in the packet.
Okay, but I just want to let the board members know that there are no comments from the fire chief and the fire marshal on this project itself. We reviewed in detail the curb radiuses, the access on all four sides, and the nature of the business, and they had no comments, no revisions, and there is a letter that we forwarded for the record, just so the board members know that. Again, just going through some of the details here. So, we're going to have a main entrance off of High Point Road, and again, there will be access on all four sides. The client will have garage overhead doors on all four sides, both the north, south, east, and westerly sides of the building. And this is mainly for the access of the large trailers. Again, he's into the marine restoration business. So when he comes in with the big trailers and some of the bigger sailboats, he's going to want to have those big curb radiuses, get into the building through one side and get out through the other side. It is a slab on grade construction, so it is all one level. As you'll see on the plans, there are retaining walls both on the south and north sides on both ends of the site. And that's because we have about 12 to 15 feet of grade change from one side to the next. So rather than stepping the building, which really isn't conducive to his overall business, or proposing two separate buildings, what we did is we have a retaining wall that's cutting the earth on the high side, which is the south bottom of the page. And then to the top of the page, which is north, that will all be filled and a retaining wall will be there with a safety guardrail to prevent vehicles from going over the top of it. But we've also terraced and stepped the retaining wall. So rather than just having one large retaining wall, we've terraced it into three different smaller walls that are around 4 to 5 feet. And again, typically this is more conducive to sloping and safety reasons, and also aesthetics. Instead of having just one big wall, we kind of step it and transition it into the slope. Parking, we have approximately about 18 parking spots, which is more than what our client needs. Currently, he only needs 3 to 5, but just with zoning purposes and requirements, we want to make sure we were able to show the required number of parking spaces. Our drainage basin, which will be infiltration, is off to the northeast corner, which is the top right corner of the page. It's going to be an infiltration basin, which is going to collect the roof water from the proposed building. The parking areas and the driveway areas are going to be asphalt, but it will be porous pavement to allow that stormwater to recharge and infiltrate back in through the groundwater. Our OWTS, or septic system, as they say, is going to be at the bottom right corner of the page, which is your southeast corner. This is going to be a bottomless sand filter type system. Again, it's going to be a very low flow use, just because there'll be one bathroom, but maybe 4 to 5 employees there at one time. So again, as far as water usage and septic system, very low intense use on our end. So it's a very, very small septic system. Some of the other elements are on the right-hand side of the page, which would be the easterly side. We have an outdoor storage area with a dumpster. Now, the dumpster is going to be fully enclosed, but again, it's a very small 2-yard dumpster. The client indicated he doesn't produce a lot of trash here. He'd like to see it screened. And as far as the outdoor storage is concerned, again, he's not sure what type of materials he'll be storing, but again, most of the storage and his day-to-day operations are going to be 99% interior to this building itself. The other element, again, we have is the landscaping portion of this. What we're proposing is 7 red maple trees as outlined on, I believe this is sheet 4 of 7, it looks like, that we have outlined along the street frontage. And then closer to the building, there is some rhododendrons and some green giants that we've kind of spec'd out, because if you look at the rendering, Mike, if you can go back to the architectural, there we go. Yeah, so if you go to the top left corner of the page, that is the northwest corner quadrant. That's going to be his main entrance. So, the manufacturer provided a little bit more glass there. There's going to be an open office. He doesn't expect, this isn't a retail facility. So, again, it's kind of a quirky little business. They're not going to have people coming in and out there on a daily basis, maybe one or two clients a month or one or two clients every few weeks is pretty much the amount of volume or traffic that we're expecting. So very, very low intense use. The other thing to note is the lighting on the property. We don't propose any exterior parking lighting. It's not needed. Typically the hours are 8 to 4 or 8 to 3:30. So there's nobody in the parking lot when it's dark out. And most of the lighting is going to be building mounted flush LED lights, downlighting, which again was in that packet of building specifications. I believe there was, yeah, right there. Yep. So those are the ones that are going to be mounted to the building itself. And then if you can go back to the rendering, Mike, on that elevation. So, and then the other thing to note is signage. The client isn't proposing an actual sign on a post in the front, rather than just, he's going to mount it to the building as shown here on that north elevation. So, and what I'd like to do is just maybe open it up to the board. If you guys have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
I just made a note that the Green Giants is gonna get really,
Yep.
really wide big, so like the Niagara is like a good cultivar. It's like 10 feet wide. They don't get as massive. They still get big. They're not those real skinny ones that stay skinny. And
Mhm.
that's the only suggestion on the plants. I mean, the roadies can work, it's not like
Okay.
I
That's
have
fine.
a
with-
couple of questions as well. Are there going to be limits to the occupancy as far as people are concerned in this building based on the size of the septic system?
So yeah, it's a good question. So the septic system is based on number of employees, and what we did is we designed it based on a dozen employees, and the DEM gives us about 15 gallons a day per employee. So it's a very low intense use. So I guess you're right. It will limit us on the septic system itself, because again, there's only going to just be plumbing just for one bathroom. It's not going to be a full kitchen. There's not going to be showers there. It's just a toilet and a sink and probably a men's and a women's room. So yeah, and again, it's not intended for high occupancy in the terms of employees. So again, the septic system is probably only rated for about 15 employees, but the client typically has 4 to 5 employees. Even if that increases, he doesn't foresee it more than doubling. That
Okay.
answers your question. Yeah.
Well, the other question, I guess, is the exterior lighting. I know there isn't a concrete rule in the town of Portsmouth as far as downlighting.
Mhm.
But are these lights going to be dark sky compliant so that they just shine light downward?
That's correct. Yes, dark sky compliant. And again, they do face downward, so they're building mounted. Correct. Yep.
What's the guardrails on around?
Cool.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I couldn't really hear that question. Was that directed towards me?
Yeah, do you have a design for the guardrail yet?
So again, the final guardrail design, that's something, it's kind of like picking out roof shingles or siding. When we talk to the client, there's a few different options for guardrails. Again, we could do the timber guardrail, we could do a steel guardrail, we could do a combination guardrail. There's multiple options when it comes to guardrails, and of course retaining walls. But again, that's something that, we're kind of going to further discussion, but in any event, we recognize it will need a guardrail and that it will meet code, especially for safety measures. So again, our client, just looking at, the aesthetics of the building, he wants to make it look nice, of course. So, our recommendation would probably be something in the timber fashion. I think the steel kind of looks a little more industrial. So again, we were going to leave that, up to him on the final design choice. But again, we're open to the board. Obviously, that's why we're here this evening, is to get the board's opinion of that. If you guys have an opinion, we can certainly take that into consideration and put that as part of the set.
I'd be less concerned about the aesthetics of it because it's really not very visible.
Mhm.
Especially, because you're further high up than High Point Ave and you don't see it from the entrance to the building. But I'd be concerned about safety because if you're swinging a trailer out, somebody's paying attention to a trailer as they come along. You got to make sure that if somebody hits it, they're not going to go off the edge into your retention basin.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, no, that's why we've called it out. We've had multiple conversations with the client. Yep.
You can leave both of them on.
Oh.
Use the green one.
Tom, I was just wondering, the grading and drainage plan. All the drainage from like the back to the front, is that all getting graded? So. I know you have like a drain around the, building, but is all that going into that, the runoff going into that basin?
So the building, the roof runoff is going into the infiltration basin. And then the north side of the property is getting graded towards the basin, but the rest of the parking areas and driveway areas are going to be a porous asphalt. So that will infiltrate through the groundwater itself. So that doesn't need to be collected or conveyed to any sort of system itself. It's like putting stone or gravel driveway. It's just a little bit better of a driving surface for the client.
Okay, I've got a couple questions, Tom. So the windows, this is an IMP building, correct?
I'm sorry, what was that again?
It's an IMP?
No.
Metal panel, right?
Yep.
Yep. So you've got a span usually of 3 feet width on the vertical panels. Then you've got the windows and so forth. Clear, are they going to be divided light? I'm mostly from this point looking at it from aesthetic because a lot of stuff that we approved, like for the car park, didn't exactly come out the way we wanted it to.
Mm.
So,
Yeah, again, I believe it's going to be clear. And again, I mean, if you'd like to put that in the conditions or on the again recommendations, I'm sure. I mean, my client will absolutely follow any sort of guidance that you have or opinions. So, but I believe again, just like the office doors and glass, that's all going to be clear.
has to be. So I don't know how the board feels about that one, but it's mostly visible from West Main Road, and those are some of my other questions. You've got all the HVAC equipment on the ground. There's nothing mounted on the roof. There won't be. I mean, you'll have a stack pipe for the toilets and that sort of thing, but there's not going to be fans or anything. I know it's like a 4 or 5 pitch. Do you anticipate cylinder roof fans, turbines, that type of thing?
No, I don't anticipate any sort of the special additional equipment because right now, again, just going off of his business, which is 100 feet up the road in the same industrial park, there are no additional measures like that in his current establishment. No.
One thing that we've looked at for years over there is storage. I know you guys are talking about storing stuff in the back, which is great. I think when Vanguard was in there, Chip John's group, they stored everything in the back. I think we want to see that again. so it doesn't look like an eyesore from Route 24.
Right.
I know, it's, so yeah, I know, it's like, I don't know what they would be storing there. If they take in a boat, Tom, they're gonna bring it right in, right?
Yes. Oh, yeah, yeah. There's no other, you can't even, there's no room for that because if you look at my site plan, I mean, it's a driveway with big turning radiuses, but there's no room to just park a boat outside. And again, I keep going based on their establishment now. You should see where they are now in the turning radius. I mean, they have no space, there's no room, but I don't think I've ever seen a boat outside, maybe for like a half an hour or 2 or 3 hours while they're trying to prep something inside. So there might be a boat sitting, waiting, but they'll never be, they're not into the business of, storing boats or keeping them outside because there's no space inside. So
Are those overflow spaces? Is that paving or is that going to be landscape?
no, that's gravel. No. In between the building and the driving traveled way is gravel. And again, we called out just for zoning purposes, overflow spaces. We don't intend to ever use them, or ever need them. We just want to make sure we're compliant with zoning parameters for parking spaces.
Is there paint or fiberglass operations in the building? So do you need?
I don't
Paint
believe
booth?
so. Yeah, I don't believe so, but again, our client will review that with the full planning board. And I can answer that question.
I saw the color chart that was up there, so it's gonna be a standing seam roof.
Yes.
Down.
Yep.
So, where's the colors? It's the gray, the galvanum.
Exactly. Yeah. So I can zoom in on mine too. Yeah. So we're doing the Tundra, it's called, which is the wall panel shadow rib, which is 16-inch wide by 3-inch deep ribs. So they're a little bit smaller looking. And then the roof window door color is going to be a slate gray.
Is this a Seco or a Star building?
Neither. It's another building, and I haven't heard. I'm not sure of the name, to be honest with you. I know Design Physics Architecture designed it, and I believe it's a form of their company down in Virginia that fabricates these.
The concrete skirt at the bottom. So
Yep.
we've seen that unfortunately a long time ago, like on Matt Kluge's building.
Oh yeah.
Right, so.
Yep.
Kind of one of my suggestions, it'll make the building look better if they can barge it, particularly.
I agree. Yep.
Instead of rubbing it down and the pins off and all that good stuff.
Yep.
They can
Yep.
barge the lower part, if everyone agrees on that. It looks better, yeah. I mean,
Absolutely.
We don't need stucco, but. if they-
No. Yeah, again, it's just a finish. It's pretty simple to do, and you're right. I mean, it just takes out all the form lines and the holes for the tie lines. And again, in a building like this nature, you always have that 3-foot wall sticking up in this nature. But you're right. It's either a stone veneer, but again, that could get expensive. But it's pretty economical to request, and practical to request someone to parge that. So I agree 100% with that.
And I have another question on the inside of the building. Is there going to be any kind of containment as far as water? I mean, if they hose down the building, it's going to go out the doors and eventually into the catch basins and out, or are they planning a floor drain?
So that's a good question, and I've got to have more conversations with the client and the architect on that. And again, right now I don't have any plans to put a floor drain in there right now because of the 4 overhead doors. They were going to pitch the interior slab slightly in different locations, but there was going to be more conversation about if they actually even needed a floor drain. But that's a good question.
Well, if they do, I mean, we just need to put a separator in.
Correct. Yes, exactly. Yep.
I mean, does everyone feel strongly about the firelight windows or not? Okay, I don't care, it's the thought, and it'll make it more expensive. It does. One thing I would say, because they put up about a dozen of these a year, just a recommendation, I put quarter pane glass in the man doors so people don't run into each other. And it's a cheap upgrade you're gonna insulate the panel doors for the overhead doors, throw light panels in those as well.
Yep. It's a good idea.
Brings in more light and,
Yep.
you know what I'm saying?
Okay. We're amenable to that. Thank you. Yep.
I guess I have another question as far as water pressure, fire flows. Is fire protection going to be required in this building?
So that's a great question, because I had that same question for the fire chief, Chief Ford. And again, what's going to happen is once we apply for the building permit, he's going to have to look at the final interior design and layout. And again, obviously usage. And then he's going to make that final determination if he needs it to be sprinkled. He doesn't think so, but again, he has the final call on that, because if it does, we have to bring in another fire line, because right now we just have a domestic 1-inch service line just for the bathrooms and a couple of hoses and wash downs. But if fire protection is needed, then we're going to have to bring in the necessary infrastructure to support it. But again, his initial pass of it, he didn't think so, but he gets the final say once we apply for the building permit. He'll get a separate application. He'll get the final interior layout and architecturals, and he'll review it one more time.
Okay, but that's kind of down the road. It'd be nice to know what the capabilities are on that main.
Yeah, there's a hydrant right there. I talked to the chief. There's a hydrant within 100 feet.
I know that. I'm talking about.
Yeah.
I'm not talking about that. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about what's in the street.
Yep. You're talking about what the pressure is in the street?
Yeah, the pressure, what the fire flows are in the street.
Oh, okay, I gotcha.
Someone must have a record of it.
Oh,
Yeah. Yep.
The car park.
Doesn't?
Just below it.
Yeah. It's kind of hard to believe they're not going to be doing any painting. Or anything like that.
They're gonna have to submit their plans if they have them. Each one, their SDS, they're gonna have to submit. That's in the fire department's hands. So it's-
Yeah.
The fire department. But if it's both there and both buildings, it's fiberglass things. That's really not hard.
They usually gets covered pretty thoroughly by the zoning board.
Nick, I know you're not feeling well tonight, but we haven't heard from
Yeah.
you.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, we got you. Yeah.
Okay, I've got a couple comments and questions. Since we have the screen up here, right here now, these areas that are in the dark gray, are those are, I assume, grass? Or
That's going to be stone, porous stone, gravel.
okay,
And then there'll be that, they don't show it again. This is just the building manufacturer's architect. So they don't really accurately portray, but on our plan, we have some site landscaping that's going to be in there. So there's going to be there's going to be a lot of mulch there. And again, Leslie made a mention and had some recommendations of some other species of plants, which we'll take her up
Yeah.
on in comments. And,
Yeah.
but it'll all be porous.
But no curbing? So your manufacturer's plans show curbing, but. you
Yeah,
don't.
again, yeah, exactly. I don't want to show the curbing there. I don't want to collect the whole intent is not to collect that stormwater, but to allow it till, low impact development, let it infiltrate at the point of impact. The roof itself is getting collected to a separate system and brought away from the parking areas. So again, I don't want the curbing, and I talked to the chief too, just for those turning radiuses. It's a nice feature not to have curbing for big trailers, big fire trucks. So again, we have a few different parameters, but that was the final decision we made, is not to have curbing. So it's not shown on our site plan.
the other couple comments I had, was that along, you've shown 7 red oaks, Quercus rubra.
Yep.
On the north and west side. I would just like to suggest that those are underplanted with a, like we've done for everybody comes before us. That those are underplanted with a mixture of evergreen and deciduous shrubs and small trees, like hydrangeas, inkberries, just something else, because although I know this is an industrial park, it's still the goal of the design review committee is that things that are built in the town, our ideal is to make them as beautiful as they can be. So I would suggest that on the that one tree, the one red oak, and on the west, underplant those with a mixture of deciduous and evergreens, and even on the whole north side, which says High Point Avenue, continue a mixed planting there as well.
Sure.
The other thing was, Leslie had mentioned on the west side of the building, you specify 3 Thuya green giants, and they were drawn in there at probably like, it looks like on scale like 3 to 5 foot. Those, the green giant is gonna, at a mature size, is gonna be about 30, 40, 50 feet tall and about 10, 15 feet wide. So that's not appropriate for there. I would choose something else. And even right by that front door on the northwest corner, the couple of Rhodey maximums is they're gonna be too big there. So just something else, maybe a bunch of azaleas, some ornamental grasses, I don't know, but just something else. But just, you know, I'm not going to design it. I mean, I don't want to design it for you, but just in those 2 places, there's got to be something else. Or just, or I mean, you can put them in there. They're going to look good for a year or 2, but then you're going to have problems. And those are the only questions I had. That's it.
My other comment, though, is that on the south side where you have the new retaining wall going in and you're adjacent to lot 7C, you're going to need a retaining wall. You're going to need a guardrail from the edge of pavement for the neighbor. Have you?
Yes, correct.
Have you discussed that with those owners?
Yes. Yeah, so we have a call out too on the structural plan. I mean, on the site plan for that wall, which is the reverse, right? So it's more of a, that would be more of a safety fence, not for vehicular traffic, because there's lawn area in between our retaining wall in the south and that neighbor to the south. So again, there's conversations with our client and that client on what might be best aesthetically to put there. So not just a chain link fence, but something other, more than a guardrail, because a guardrail is going to prevent the, vehicular, movements over the wall. We're more worried about pedestrian movements of actual someone falling. But again, to my point, what I said earlier is this is a 2-tiered wall as well. So it's not that much of a slope. The maximum wall height, which I noted on the plan, is 4 feet. So what we did is we stacked 2 4-foot walls and stepped them 3 feet. So there's a terrace there. So it kind of breaks up that severity, if you will. Not only,
it's not much of a terrace. I'm pretty
no,
familiar with those.
no, not at all.
So
No, not at all.
You definitely need a guardrail along that
Right.
perimeter. So
Understood. Yep, and that's why we called it out. Absolutely, I agree. But I'm just saying we're trying to step as much as we can, again, for aesthetics and just for obviously safety, because it would be very easy for us just to do one 8-foot wall. But I thought for both aesthetics and safety, regardless, we're going to have a rail, but that's what we need to do. So
no, you need a structural engineer to design an 8-foot wall. You don't need a structural engineer to design a 4-foot wall.
correct. Yep, exactly.
So it's
That's a good
actually
point.
easier the way you show it.
Right. Yeah, thank you. That was a great point.
But Yeah, but I'd like to see what you're using for a guardrail to make sure. Is that called out somewhere?
Not the actual final guardrail, no.
Yeah, I think we want to see that to make sure that.
Okay.
For safety reasons.
Yep.
I think we want to
Yep.
see, because the last thing you want to do is somebody backing out of that adjacent property and take a header over an 8-foot wall.
Yeah,
Well, people, you can, if you look at if you look at the first page, you can see where those vehicles are backed. They're backed in, all just basically pointing straight in. First page, the site plan. Yep, actually that one.
This one?
Yep, that one there. If you zoom in, you can see those vehicles parked in the adjacent one. See all those back? No,
Which one? Over here?
yeah, lower left,
Yeah. Oh, over here.
right there, that parking lot. That one is gonna have an 8-foot wall from the back of that parking lot where some of those cars have pulled in straight. So if somebody backs out of one of those parking spots and they hit the wall or the guardrail, if that guardrail gives way, they're gonna go over and drop 8 feet.
Well, I think that's why Tom was mentioning, I think, about having more of a fence there, right, versus a guardrail.
Well, a fence isn't gonna stop a car. This fence is gonna stop a pedestrian, but it won't stop a car going over the edge when that person's backing out.
Right, especially if they're in the middle of the fence.
Yeah,
Mm.
when new developments, you get people who, don't pay attention
Yeah,
and
yeah.
they might have pulled in there in the past and they know there was, an empty site there before. Who knows?
What's that line that's on the north end of the property on the existing property? Is that like
This line?
where the parking we're talking about?
Right.
See that line? Is that, what is that?
This
Edge of
line?
pavement.
This line
the
right here?
Black line is actually the outline of the site, the property line.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
But right now it's flat, but there's gonna be an 8-foot retaining wall.
That's, yeah, right,
Yeah, we'd be happy to go over that final guardrail detail and just finalize that with the client and send that to you guys.
Yeah, I wouldn't leave it up to you can't just say, here, we're gonna do the minimal and then leave it up to the neighbor to put in their own, guardrail on that.
Oh, no, it's our responsibility. Our client is going to be installing that for sure. Absolutely. Yeah, it's just about what type and what we're gonna make it look like. Again, the timber guardrail is probably more than likely what we're gonna be utilizing. But we can review that with him and give him the options, on the table of what we do, and then we can present that to you.
Yeah, if you do a timber one, you gotta do a steel backer to it. to
Right.
prevent-
Yep.
But
Yep.
they look better.
Yeah, they do. look
Yeah,
better.
exactly. Well, that's why I'd probably prefer, again, maybe we could just discuss, is that what the board and you guys would prefer, is to see more of a timber guardrail, correct?
I would, yeah.
Okay. And we'd be amenable to that, so.
Any more questions from the board members? Is there any butters or interested parties that would like to speak to this petition?
There's no one else.
No one's called in. So what I understand, Tom, is you guys want to be ready for planning on Wednesday, correct?
Yes, if
Okay,
at all
so-
possible, Mr. Chair.
So I'm looking at Leslie and the other board members that we need to turn around something pretty quick here with our suggestions, opinions, stipulations. And I know everyone works 50-hour weeks now, so is that doable, Leslie, can you get it as early as Wednesday morning, Mike?
Yeah.
Or even the afternoon?
Yeah.
So if Leslie gets out a rough draft tomorrow, and I'll help you with it, Leslie.
Yeah,
I'm
'cause
not
there's
traveling.
definitely some like real stuff, right?
Well, we're gonna skip the divided light. My suggestions of putting in quarter panels in the man doors
Yeah.
is just a builder sort of thing. It's a safety thing. The lights in the door are cheap, and since they're gonna be insulated panel doors. So,
It was like a bunch of different attachments. It wasn't like a like a
There's
floor
multiple
plan
attachments to
ready.
it.
This one, all right, you can have my set. Yeah, no. Yeah, it was kind of a lot. Yeah, so in a case like this, we don't get into.
They're pretty simple
the
plans.
yeah, we don't get into the structure and part of that. You know, we cover the aesthetics, the architecture, signage, which we already talked about, lighting, landscaping. Those are our areas of sort of purview over these projects. So I don't think I have anything else. Anybody else? Nick?
You mentioned there was one bathroom in there?
So it'll be a men's and a women's, yes.
There's 3 bathrooms in the plan.
There's 3, okay.
I don't know
I'm
if
not
there's-
sure why. I'll have to look at it.
So
See,
as far as the building though, there's not, I think I have.
Enlarged.
maybe there's an officer's bathroom. I don't, let's see.
Office, enlarged partial first floor plan, enlarged
Let's-
second floor plan.
Are your septic system calcs based on the occupancy or the quantity of the bathrooms?
No, see, we could have 100 bathrooms in there and it doesn't change our septic. DEM only bases it on number of employees is
Yeah, that's
the,
what I thought. So that, I
Yeah.
guess that isn't.
so, let me see. I'm looking at, let's see.
What parts in the foundation?
But
So look
our,
at A104.
Oh, I see. So it looks like he's got a mezzanine on the second floor. Yeah, that's just the office, which is a little mezzanine, little, it looks like 20 by 20, very small corner. And there's a third bathroom, probably just, again, doesn't change the flow, but probably just for the owner or the business manager. So I'm sure the employees have the bathroom and the lounge downstairs and then upstairs for the office manager or owner.
but the scope of our group is the exterior, the landscape, the lighting, et cetera. It's a,
Right.
we're not concerned with what's going on the inside. That's up to others. So, I mean, it's interesting, but that's not our purview.
So Tom, if they go with that tundra color, which is kind of a nice one,
Mhm.
then it's easy to parge that in gray at the
Right.
bottom, you know, that whole thing.
Yeah, that was a good point. Yep. And we're amenable to that.
Gray dry lock is kind of a nice finish. You
Mhm.
can use that, I'm sure. So.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're calling
Yeah.
out for a board formed concrete stem wall, so they might have horizontal board finish on it.
Might.
Mhm.
Oh,
Okay, we will do our best and we will get it done.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't seem like there's that much.
There's
of
not,
a
yeah,
do on it, so,
we can do a
Right.
real quick regroup to make sure we didn't miss anything.
Yeah.
So we don't want to tie up Tom or anybody else. I think
We appreciate that.
we can conclude our meeting. It's 17 minutes till 8 o'clock, and the design review board is adjourning for this evening.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr.
Yeah,
Chair.
thank you.
Thank you,
everyone.
guys.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Good night.
Thanks.